The continuing challenges for African Americans in the Civil Rights Movement. Equality is a subject that has been widely controversial since America's creation, due to the foundations of America being built partly from slave labor. Even though in this day and age slavery is no longer legally institutionalized, the history of slavery and the brutalities that were committed during the time of its use have left lasting scars on today's society. While, yes, we have come a long way as a society when it comes to equality, we are still not equal. African Americans still don't have access to the same privileges white people have. They face systemic racism and are still fighting for equality to this day. African Americans are still battling against racially fueled injustices and are faced with day-to-day challenges that white Americans will never experience. As of today, we cannot say that in America, everyone is equal. Challenges for equality in education. African Americans have always been forced into poorer neighborhoods because of redlining laws and housing covenants. Due to this, they have less access to the luxuries and even necessities that middle-class or rich neighborhoods do. This includes education, as the quality of education within a school district depends on the amount of funds that the school can receive. The impact that these financial differences have on a person's development is highlighted in this journal article titled State-Level Education Quality and Trajectories of Cognitive Function by Race and Educational Attainment by authors Walesman, Jackson, Abruzzi, and Alishire. Quote, residing in states with higher resource education systems during childhood was associated with better cognitive function, particularly among those who completed less than 12 years of schooling, regardless of race. End quote. They then go on to state that, quote, federal and state investment in public schools may provide students with opportunities to develop important cognitive resources during schooling that translate into better cognitive function in later life, especially among marginalized populations. End quote. Schools with more funding have access to better technology, better textbooks, better quality teachers, and have easier access to programs and scholarships that will assist them to gain a higher education. On top of the financial differences within the school system, African Americans also face racial discrimination. A journal article titled School Discrimination, Discipline Inequities, and Adjustment Among Black Adolescent Girls and Boys, an intersectionality-informed approach by authors Shwana Marquetta, Alexandria Sheretta, and Misha, highlights the different levels in which discrimination takes place within the school system and how it affects the student. Quote, school racial climate literature has highlighted the inequitable and discriminatory experiences that racially minoritized youth incur across various levels of the school environment, including, but not limited to, interpersonal interactions, negative stereotypes, and disciplinary practices. These experiences transform the school environment from a context of safety and learning to a context of risk and oppression for Black youth. End quote. We can't expect students to be able to study and be successful in an environment that they do not feel safe in. This marginalizes the Black community within school environments, setting them up for failure. Systemic racism. Due to the foundations that slavery has left in America, racism and prejudice towards people because of their skin color is common in every aspect of life. African Americans will commonly find that they are disadvantaged when it comes to workplaces and other aspects of life. Racist stereotypes cause unfair advantages for white Americans and disadvantages for Black Americans. This kind of disadvantage is rooted within the foundations of America, including our healthcare system. A journal article from the American Journal of Public Health titled Organizing for Black Lives and Funding COVID-19 Relief, Community Responses to Systemic Racism and Imagining Public Health 4.0 by authors Klein and Quirga states, quote, addressing COVID-19 related health inequalities requires responding to structural racism. We argue that there is a need for Public Health 4.0, politically engaged research and practice with community-based organizations that respond to root causes of poor health, such as structural racism. End quote. Systemic racism prevents minorities from having equal access to healthcare, which is a birth-given right to every human. If our natural rights as humans is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then this disadvantage to accessing healthcare is unconstitutional and the system should be dismantled and repaired. If we don't get rid of the roots of the issue, the problem will only continue to grow. These systemic inequalities reach into the educational aspects of life as well, hindering the growth and development of our future generation. an article from Child Welfare titled Understanding Black Father Involvement in Education in the Context of Systemic Inequities by authors Lewis, Lemons, Dorsey, Brown, and Johnson Jr. states, quote, systemic barriers often hinder equitable education opportunities, particularly for children raised in communities with lower socioeconomic status, which are disproportionately populated by Black families, end quote. Redlining and other real estate strategies that stem from racist ideals have created an extreme disadvantage for African Americans by keeping them grouped together in these lower socioeconomic communities. This is just one of many barriers that African Americans are faced with in these marginalized communities, where they continue to be oppressed by the system. The civil rights movement activity of today. When the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, the civil rights movement didn't end. To this day, the civil rights movement is still very much alive and active. America and its citizens have always been against change. Change takes away the familiarities that people have with life, so they fear it. Due to this and racist ideals, when segregation was being dismantled, white Americans showed opposition across the whole nation, not just in the South. This resulted in what was called the white flight, which resulted in a specific type of segregation called de facto segregation. And it forced Black people into segregated cities because white people would either avoid Black people or move out when they moved in. This forced Black Americans into dangerous neighborhoods and resulted in harmful stereotypes that caused the unjust death of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. Martin was walking through a neighborhood at night when he was confronted by George Zimmerman, who was at the time Neighborhood Watch. During the confrontation, Zimmerman fatally shot Martin, even though Martin was unarmed. This is what started the Black Lives Matter movement as a hashtag online in 2013. The movement was then brought back into the light in 2020 when George Floyd was also killed, but this time he was killed by a former police officer, Derek Chauvin, who knelt on Floyd's neck while he yelled, "I can't breathe," and cried out for his mom. This sparked outrage and riots throughout the nation. As the BLM movement continued and a counter-movement started. In response to BLM, white people started chanting ALM, which stands for All Lives Matter. An article titled Implicit Racism, Colorblindness, and Narrow Definitions of Discrimination, Why Some White People Prefer All Lives Matter to Black Lives Matter, by authors West, Greenland, and Van Laar, is a study that was conducted to see if this response from white Americans had to do with racism. Quote, the results indicated a significant association between ALM support and implicit racism, colorblindness, and narrow definitional boundaries of discrimination. The more participants said that they supported ALM, the more they showed high levels of implicit racism against Black people, endorsed colorblind ideologies that downplayed or ignored contemporary inequalities, and defined racism in such narrow terms as to make them unlikely to see racism except in the most outrageous circumstances. End quote. This highlights the fact that the civil rights movement is still ongoing. Many white Americans still hold racist ideologies that stemmed from slavery. Even if they are not outwardly hateful and racist, many white Americans contribute to the issue by being ignorant to the fact that racism is still an issue. People choose to be blissfully ignorant, which harms our society as a whole. Despite the changes that have been made in America to give the illusion that everyone is equal and free, racism and discrimination is still very prominent in every aspect of life. Systemic racism is deeply rooted within this country as it has been built from slave labor. This has affected our education systems, the workforce, the justice system, and politics as well. The civil rights movement is still very much active and alive to this day. Most people just choose to ignore it because it doesn't affect them. This ideology is very harmful, not only to minorities, but to society as a whole. As a country, we are only as strong as our weakest link. If we are not united as one, then our future holds no success. The fight for equality isn't just one group's battle, it's all of ours. Despite all the pain and suffering that African Americans have gone through, we are still not equal. And then here is the list of sources that I used to write this paper. Thank you.